Elena had spent years scrubbing the floors of the grand Ravenshire Manor, her hands raw and knees bruised from hours of endless labor. She was a maid, nothing more, nothing less, at least in the eyes of Lady Beatrice, the mistress of the house. Lady Beatrice was a woman of old money and cold heart, who delighted in humiliating her servants, especially Elena. "You are beneath me," Lady Beatrice would say, a smirk tugging at her lips as she watched Elena struggle to carry trays laden with food, only to slap them out of her hands. "You'll never be more than a filthy little wretch." The other servants dared not intervene, for fear of incurring the same wrath. They kept their heads down, their eyes averted, and their voices silent, as Elena endured the torment day after day. But what Lady Beatrice failed to realize was that humiliation can break a person, but it can also ignite a fire within them. Elena had not always been a maid. She had once been the daughter of a merchant, a prosperous one, until her father's sudden death had left the family drowning in debt. With no other options, she had sold herself into servitude to keep her sickly mother from starving. Every day in Ravenshire Manor was a reminder of what she had lost. But Elena was not the kind to give up easily. One fateful evening, after years of degradation, Lady Beatrice staged an extravagant ball, inviting nobles from across the country. Elena and the other servants were instructed to work tirelessly, ensuring that not a single guest went unattended. As she moved through the grand hall, balancing silver trays with precise grace, she heard the whispers. "Lady Beatrice is planning to marry into the Whitmore fortune," a woman whispered behind a fan. "She's convinced Lord Whitmore to invest in Ravenshire." Elena's heart pounded. She knew something that Lady Beatrice didn't. The Whitmore fortune was on the brink of ruin. The merchant's connections had once afforded Elena insights into the dealings of the aristocracy. Lord Whitmore's business ventures had failed, and he was desperately seeking financial aid to maintain the illusion of wealth. If Lady Beatrice married him, she would lose everything she had ever hoarded. For the first time in years, Elena allowed herself to dream of justice. Not revenge, she told herself, justice. That night, Elena did something she had never dared before. She wrote a letter, carefully forged with the practiced elegance of nobility, and had it discreetly delivered to Lord Whitmore's estate. The letter detailed a fabricated account of Lady Beatrice's disdain for Whitmore's dwindling wealth, painting her as a woman merely after his remaining fortune. Days passed. Then, whispers turned to scandal. The engagement between Lady Beatrice and Lord Whitmore was called off in dramatic fashion. Rumors swirled of a letter, of betrayal, of deceit. Lady Beatrice's reputation crumbled overnight. Guests who once admired her turned away, fearing association with a disgraced woman. Worse still, the financial losses from the failed investment left Ravenshire Manor vulnerable to creditors. Elena bided her time. With the money she had secretly saved over the years and the connections she had carefully maintained, she made her move. She arranged to purchase Ravenshire Manor at auction when it inevitably went up for sale. The day she walked through the grand doors, not as a maid, but as the new owner, was the day she finally let herself smile. Lady Beatrice, now penniless and desperate, stood in the great hall, her once pristine gown wrinkled and stained. What is the meaning of this?" Lady Beatrice stammered, her voice devoid of the usual arrogance. Elena regarded her former mistress with a calm she had not known she possessed. "It means, Lady Beatrice," she said, savoring the words, "that you are no longer the mistress of Ravenshire. I am." Beatrice's face paled, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for words that would not come. For years she had humiliated Elena, treating her as nothing more than a lowly servant. But now, she stood in the presence of the very woman she had tried to break, only to find that Elena had risen far beyond her grasp. Justice had been served, and Elena at last was free. In the heart of the bustling city of Aldenford, where the wealthy flaunted their silk gowns and golden carriages, there stood a grand textile factory owned by Lord Reginald Ashcroft. The factory was a pillar of his immense fortune, but it was built on the broken backs of workers who toiled from dawn till dusk for mere scraps. Among them was Lillian Carter, a young woman with calloused hands and eyes that burned with quiet defiance. Lillian had not always been a weaver in Ashcroft's factory. Her father had once been a respected textile merchant, renowned for his intricate embroidery and unparalleled craftsmanship. But Lord Ashcroft had seen him as competition. Using his wealth and influence, he crushed Lillian's family business, spreading false accusations of fraud until no noble would dare buy from the Carters. Bankrupted and disgraced, her father had died of heartbreak, leaving Lillian and her mother destitute. The only work she could find was at the very factory of the man who had ruined them. Day after day, Lillian endured the cruel taunts of Lord Ashcroft. "You should be grateful," he would sneer as he inspected the workers. "Without me, you'd be begging in the streets." His overseers were no better, forcing Lillian and the others to work without rest, punishing those who fell behind. She was just another worker, another nameless soul in Ashcroft's empire. But Lillian refused to be forgotten. One evening, after months of careful planning, she put her plan into motion. She had spent years perfecting her father's embroidery techniques, weaving patterns so fine they seemed almost alive. With the help of a few trusted workers, she began crafting textiles in secret, each more exquisite than the last. They bore the signature of the Carter family, subtle enough to go unnoticed at first, but unmistakable to those who knew true craftsmanship. Then, one night, she took a risk. She anonymously sent a sample of her finest work to Lady Evelyn Montclair, a noblewoman known for her love of rare fabrics. Along with it, she included a simple note: "A Carter never forgets." The effect was immediate. Lady Montclair, enchanted by the masterpiece, demanded more. Soon, whispers spread among the nobility of a mysterious textile artist whose work surpassed even the finest imports. Merchants clamored to find the source. Orders poured in. And then, the final blow. Lillian arranged for Lord Ashcroft himself to present his latest collection at the annual Grand Market, an event where nobles and merchants gathered to display their finest wares. When he unveiled his factory's newest line, the crowd barely glanced at it. Instead, all eyes were on a rival stall, where Lillian, her identity still hidden, had displayed her family's true legacy. Lady Montclair and other nobles rushed to purchase her fabrics, praising the craftsmanship and dismissing Ashcroft's factory-made goods as cheap imitations. In a single afternoon, his reputation was in tatters. Enraged, he tried to uncover who was behind it, only to realize, too late, that his downfall had been woven thread by thread by the very girl he had oppressed. When the truth came to light, Ashcroft was finished. Nobles abandoned him. Merchants refused to work with him. His debts piled up until, in a desperate attempt to salvage his fortune, he was forced to sell his factory. And who was waiting to buy it? Lillian Carter. The day she walked into the factory, not as a weaver, but as its new owner, was the day she finally felt free. The workers, once beaten down, now looked to her with hope, and Lord Ashcroft, his wealth and power stripped away, was forced to bow his head to the woman he had once humiliated. "Looks like I won't be begging in the streets after all, Lord Ashcroft," Lillian said with a smile, and with that, the weaver's revenge was complete.